Welcome back to our AWS certification series. If you haven't seen the previous videos, we recommend checking them out first to review earlier questions along with their answers and explanations. Now, let's dive into the next set of questions. Which AWS service helps a company review historical monthly costs for EC2 and RDS usage over the past year? Correct answer: Cost Explorer. Explanation: AWS Cost Explorer provides detailed historical cost and usage data and forecasting capability. Why others are incorrect? Trusted Advisor gives best practice checks, not cost history. Amazon Forecast, predictive analytics service, not billing. CloudWatch monitors performance metrics, not cost data. Which AWS feature can identify which department is using specific AWS resources? Correct answer: Cost allocation tags. Explanation: Cost allocation tags let you label AWS resources and break down billing by those tags. Why others are incorrect? Key pairs, used for authentication to EC2. Inspector finds security vulnerabilities. Trusted Advisor provides recommendations, not resource tagging. Which AWS well-architected framework pillar covers recovering from disruptions and scaling resources to meet demand? Correct answer: Reliability. Explanation: Reliability focuses on fault tolerance, failover, and elastic scaling to maintain system operation. Why others are incorrect? Security protects systems, not recovery ability. Performance efficiency optimizes computing resources. Cost optimization minimizes cost. Which AWS cloud capability helps avoid paying for unused CPU capacity? Correct answer: Elasticity. Explanation: Elasticity automatically scales computing resources up-down based on demand, preventing over-provisioning. Why others are incorrect? Agility, speed of innovation. Reliability, system recovery ability. Durability, data persistence. A company wants to extend its physical tape library storage to AWS. Which service should it use? Correct answer: AWS Storage Gateway. Explanation: AWS Storage Gateway Tape Gateway integrates existing tape backups with Amazon S3 or Glacier. Why others are incorrect? EBS block storage for EC2. S3 object storage, but not directly integrated with tape systems. EFS network file storage, not tape library integration. Which AWS service helps protect against DDoS attacks? Correct answer: AWS Shield. Explanation: AWS Shield offers DDoS protection for AWS applications. Why others are incorrect? Inspector vulnerability scanning. Guard duty threat detection, not DDoS mitigation. Detective investigates security event. Which of the following is part of AWS global infrastructure? Correct answer: AWS regions. Explanation: AWS regions are geographical clusters of data centers forming the AWS global infrastructure. Why others are incorrect? Alexa consumer AI product. Lightsail VPS service. Organizations account management tool. Designing workloads for frequent updates and reversible changes supports which well-architected framework pillar? Correct answer. Operational excellence. Explanation. Operational excellence emphasizes iterative improvement and frequent, reversible deployments. Why others are incorrect? Security focused on protections. Performance efficiency optimizing workloads. Reliability fault tolerance. A company wants to buy a SaaS security tool offered by their vendor on AWS. Where should they go? Correct answer. AWS Marketplace. Explanation. AWS Marketplace is the official store for third-party software available on AWS. Why others are incorrect? Support Center for AWS Support Ticket. Management Console, AWS Service Management, not software purchasing. Partner Solutions Finder lists partners but not for purchasing software. A company owns per core software licenses. Which EC2 purchase option should they choose? Correct answer. Dedicated hosts. Explanation. Dedicated hosts give physical servers for EC2 instances, letting companies use per core licensing. Why others are incorrect? Reserved instances, discounted billing, not physical control. Spot instances, unused EC2 capacity, no license control. Dedicated instances, single tenant, but AWS still manages host hardware. A company with AWS enterprise support needs help understanding its monthly AWS bill and wants to implement billing best practices. Which AWS tool or resource is available to accomplish these goals? Correct answer. AWS Concierge Support Team. Explanation. Enterprise support customers get access to the AWS Concierge Support Team, a team of account and billing experts who help with billing issues, cost optimization, and best practices. Why others are incorrect? Resource tagging. Helps with cost allocation tracking, but not personalized billing guidance. AWS Abuse Team. Deals with abuse or security issues, not billing. AWS Support. General technical support, not specialized billing and account guidance for enterprise support customers. A developer is working on enhancing applications at AWS. The developer needs a service that can securely host GitHub-based code, repositories, and version controls. Which AWS service should the developer use? Correct answer. AWS Code Commit. Explanation. AWS Code Commit is a fully managed source control service that hosts private Git repositories securely in AWS. Why others are incorrect? AWS CodeStar. A project management and CI/CD setup tool, not just for hosting code. Amazon Code Guru. For automated code review and performance recommendations. AWS Code Pipeline. For CI/CD automation, not for storing and managing code repositories. A user is moving a workload from a local data center to an architecture that is distributed between the local data center and the AWS cloud. Which type of migration is this? Correct answer. On-premises to hybrid. Explanation. Hybrid architecture means workloads are split between on-premises infrastructure and the cloud. Why others are incorrect. On-premises to cloud native would mean completely moving workloads and redesigning for cloud. Hybrid to cloud native would mean moving from a hybrid setup to fully cloud native. Cloud native to hybrid, moving from full cloud to a hybrid, which is the opposite of the scenario. Which options are AWS Cloud Adoption Framework perspectives? Correct answer. Security and architecture. Explanation. AWS CAF includes 6 perspectives: business, people, governance, platform, security, and operations. Security and architecture are part of it. Why others are incorrect. Cloud fluency. Not a CAF perspective, it's a general capability. Change acceleration. Not an AWS CAF perspective, though it can be part of transformation planning. A company wants to migrate its applications to the AWS cloud. The company plans to identify and prioritize any business transformation opportunities and evaluate its AWS cloud readiness. Which AWS service or tool should the company use to meet these requirements? Correct answer. AWS Cloud Adoption Framework. Explanation. AWS CAF helps organizations assess cloud readiness and identify transformation opportunities. Why others are incorrect. AWS Managed Services operates AWS infrastructure on your behalf, not for readiness assessment. AWS Well-Architected Framework helps design secure, efficient, reliable workloads but not focused on readiness assessment. AWS Migration Hub tracks and manages migration progress but not for readiness or transformation planning. A company believes an unauthorized user copied data from an Amazon S3 bucket to their own account. Which AWS service will record the actions taken by the user? Correct answer. AWS CloudTrail. Explanation. CloudTrail records API calls and user actions across AWS services, including S3 data access. Why others are incorrect. Amazon CloudWatch monitors performance metrics, not API activity logs. AWS Infrastructure Event Management provides planning support for events, not tracking activity logs. AWS Systems Manager helps with operational tasks, not user activity tracking. A cloud practitioner needs an effective method to decrease application latency and increase performance for end users. Which service will help? Correct answer. Amazon Elasticache. Explanation. Elasticache reduces latency by caching frequently accessed data in memory. Why others are incorrect. Amazon Elastic Container Service for Kubernetes orchestrates containers, doesn't directly reduce latency. Amazon S3 object storage, not an in-memory cache. Amazon AppStream 2.0 streams desktop applications, not general-purpose caching. Which Amazon S3 storage class allows users to store data backups for long periods at the lowest cost? Correct answer. S3 Glacier. Explanation. S3 Glacier and S3 Glacier Deep Archive are designed for long-term archival at very low cost. Why others are incorrect. S3 Standard IA cheaper than standard, but still more expensive than Glacier for long-term storage. S3 standard, high availability, not lowest cost. S31 Zone IA, cheaper than IA but still more expensive than Glacier. Which AWS service would identify if unrestricted access to a resource has been allowed by a security group? Correct answer: AWS Trusted Advisor. Explanation: Trusted Advisor can check for overly permissive security group rules. Why others are incorrect? Amazon CloudWatch monitors metrics, doesn't check security configurations. VPC flow logs capture network traffic but won't identify configuration risk. AWS CloudTrail records actions but doesn't flag risky configurations. Which AWS service provides the ability to host a NoSQL database in the AWS cloud? Correct answer: Amazon DynamoDB. Explanation: DynamoDB is AWS managed NoSQL database service. Why others are incorrect? Amazon Aurora managed relational database. Amazon RDS relational database service. Amazon Redshift data warehouse, not NoSQL. A cloud practitioner needs an Amazon EC2 instance to run for 7 hours without interruptions. What's the most suitable and cost-effective option? Correct answer: on-demand instance. Explanation: on-demand instances are ideal for short, unpredictable workloads without long-term commitment. Why others are incorrect? Reserved instance requires long-term commitment. Dedicated host costly for compliance or licensing needs. Spot instance cheapest but can be interrupted anytime. A company has multiple data sources and wants to consolidate them into one data warehouse. Which AWS service can be used? Correct answer: Amazon Redshift. Explanation: Amazon Redshift is a fully managed data warehouse service for analytics. Why others are incorrect? Amazon DynamoDB NoSQL database, not a data warehouse. Amazon Athena query service for S3 data, not a warehouse. Amazon QuickSight business intelligence tool for visualization, not data consolidation. Which AWS service is a relational database compatible with MySQL and PostgreSQL? Correct answer: Amazon Aurora. Explanation: Aurora is a high-performance managed relational database compatible with MySQL and PostgreSQL. Why others are incorrect? Amazon Redshift data warehouse. Amazon DynamoDB NoSQL database. Amazon Neptune graph database. Which duty is a responsibility of AWS under the shared responsibility model? Correct answer: maintaining physical hardware. Explanation: AWS manages the physical infrastructure, hardware, and global network under the shared responsibility model. Why others are incorrect? IAM customer responsibility to manage users and permissions. Server-side encryption. AWS provides the capability, but customers configure it. Firewall configuration. Customers configure security groups and network ACLs. which consists of one or more isolated data centers in the same regional area interconnected with low-latency networks. Correct answer. Availability zone. Explanation. Availability zones are isolated data centers within an AWS region connected by low-latency link. Why others are incorrect. Edge location. Used for content delivery in Amazon CloudFront. AWS region. Geographical area containing multiple availability zones. Private networking. Not an AWS infrastructure component.